Welcome everyone again to this T-DEB program webinar for taking part in the exchanges with the UK and Turkey to find R&D collaborations. My name is Ted Fjellman. I'm the chair of the advisory committee, and it was a pleasure to evaluate all of your companies to take part in this program, and now to give you some tips on how to make the most of this program. Moving to slide 2. These are the people on the call at the moment. Myself, I'm the chair of the advisory board, as mentioned. Cindy, of course, who many of you know, being the managing director and the main driving force behind this program. And we're also today joined by two special guests, Özgür Reynoglu. So Özgür Bey is from Biokido, who is a company that just as part of this program took part in a trip to the UK. Welcome, Özgür.
Hello, Ted. How are you?
I'm very good. Good morning, Özgür. I'm great. Thanks again for yes, thank you as well. Yes, for last week. And we're also joined by Ayhan Bey, Ayhan Ilmaz from Biomod. Ayhan, are you on the line? I think not yet. So Ayhan may be joining us in some minutes. But at least we have the pleasure of being joined by Özgür Bey, who will give you a bit of a perspective of what it is like to be a company like yourself from Turkey trying to find partners in the UK. So a really special thanks to Özgür for joining. I myself have been and am still the CEO of a vaccine development company, so I'm on the healthcare side. But the reason I'm advising Cindy on this is because I've actually taken part in a Newton Fund program where we have collaborated and still are collaborating with a Mexican company that we found through a similar program run by the UK government to match UK and Mexican companies. So I'll be speaking from my experience, and Özgür will be able to fill in, and perhaps Ayhan if he joins later, specifically how it is for a Turkish company to try to find and then partner with UK companies. So the next slide shows our webinar agenda for today. What we'll cover is giving you a quick reminder of the T-DEB mandate, because I know it's been quite some time since some of you have taken part in the workshops. I'll then go into speaking about who your audience is. So who are you trying to reach, and remember what kind of people are on the other side of all the emails and connections you're going to try and make. Then I'll speak about how to productively research the UK companies so that you can get the most out of both the initial contacts and then also the meetings that you'll have in the UK as part of the trip that we're organizing. We'll then also speak about a two-pronged approach to find UK partners, and then give you a specific example of how to write an introductory email. And of course, for some of you, this is second nature. You've probably been in the game for a very long time, but we'll give you some pointers on the cultural side, the cultural sensitivity, which you may not be aware of yet if you haven't collaborated with the UK yet. And some of you are maybe younger companies who haven't done a lot of international collaborations. Hopefully you'll find this useful. But of course, Cindy and the team will continue to give you more pointers after this webinar as well. And finally, what we'll talk about are the preparations after the initial contact, because of course the work doesn't stop as soon as a UK company says we'd like to meet with you. That is actually when the real work begins, and we'll speak a bit about that. We'll then have the option for a question and answer session with Özgür and possibly Ayhan, and of course myself. If there is time at the end and you like to ask a lot of questions in Turkish, that will be fine as well. But as we're going through this presentation, if you do want to ask some questions in the chat in English, then Cindy will, as moderator, be able to moderate that and ask me any questions during the presentation as well, which you're very welcome to do. Okay. Next slide. So what this webinar will cover is basically you'll learn from my company's experience in the Newton Fund. You'll specifically learn how to productively research UK companies, how to prepare effective partnering materials, so of course your slide decks and how to prepare those, and how to reach out and successfully make contact with the UK companies. And before I go into all of that, the next slide here shows a quick reminder of the stages of the T-DEB program. Of course, stage one, the needs assessment workshops, are now over. Since September and until March this month, we have been preparing for the UK discovery trips, which are the stage two. These are, of course, the partnering missions that we've had now one of, and we'll have two more, or actually two more sets, because some of you will be divided into slightly smaller groups. So the UK discovery trips are, of course, to find a UK partner. If you do find, and the stress here is on if, or I hope, of course, that all of you will find UK partners, but if you find UK partners, then you will move on to stage three, which is the capacity development, where we will have specifically a partnership accelerator, which is unlike any other type of accelerator that you normally know about. It really is focused on partnerships, as the name suggests, and how you can work together with the UK entity that you identify to specifically try and find funding and get your R&D collaboration off to a flying start. And finally, stage four, of course, is a showcase, or as it's often known in Turkey, a demo day, which currently will be planned for March 2020 to be held in London, where the successful partnership, so this is not you as an individual company, but you together with your UK partner, will take the stage and explain what it is that you are either already doing or are planning to do together, and you will present those to many different financiers, including big foundations and venture capitalists who might then be interested in investing either in your project or perhaps in your individual companies. So a reminder about the mandate of T-DEB. It is a project that has principles and processes that are governed by where the money comes from. This is, of course, the UK government that is sponsoring this exchange, or even though the Newton Fund program is a bilateral agreement between Turkish government and the UK government, the actual money for this work is being given exclusively by the UK government at this point. So what this is about is R&D collaboration. So it's about research and development. If you are interested in just finding a distributor for your products, this is of course something that you're very welcome to do in your spare time outside of the project, but specifically for the T-DEB project, our mandate is for you to find a partner to develop a product to bring it into a new market or a new market segment. So it can be either a prototype that has never been to market that you're further developing in some way, or maybe it's a product that is on the Turkish market but you want to modify it to get to a different market or a different market niche or a different set of customers, and you need to do either some early stage research or maybe some late stage development analysis, including feasibility, market analysis, or focus groups, user experience development. All of that's part of R&D, but what is not part of R&D is setting up an office in the UK to sell a finished product that you're not going to modify any further. So that's something you'd have to do separately. The second point is that once you have a partner, they will come to Turkey in September or October 2019, so this year, and together with you will join the Partnership Accelerator, which I just explained on the previous slide. So in the end of this, right now we have a lot of Turkish companies who are part of T-DEB, but at the end of this program, by the showcase, we will be joined by an equal number of UK and Turkish companies, all of whom have an equal place within this program and are hopefully working very well together to present flourishing R&D collaborations to an audience of financiers. And the third point here is that it's only when you have a partner and you have decided what you will collaborate on that we will initiate any serious discussions and help for you to find funding for that R&D. So in other words, the current program does not have money to hand out to do the actual R&D. The current program is for you to find a UK partner and for us in the TechU team to support you to apply for different grants. And as Özgür knows from the healthcare cohort that has come, they are now entering the next stage where they have been given a list of various grant funders. For those of them who already found a partner, they are now identifying different kinds of funding sources and starting to think about applying to grants together, maybe signing confidentiality agreements, which several of them did during the trip, and now thinking about these grants and perhaps collaboration agreements already. Last but not least, if you can't identify a UK partner, if you can't identify them during the trip, it's not the end. You need to try and find someone during the trip, but you can still try to find someone after. But if you don't find a partner within a few weeks after the UK discovery trip that you will do, it will be very difficult for you to move forward, and you will not be able to partake in stage 3. So it is very important that through this webinar you ask any questions you have about this stage, because of course for you to be able to get all of the help from TechU to find a partner and get grants eventually and then take part in the accelerator, you do have to do a lot of work yourself to find partners. Okay, I'll take a quick pause there, and if you want to write any questions in the chat for Cindy and myself, of course, please do so. If you also have any questions for Özgür from the point of view of what I've said so far, Özgür, do you want to say something to add to what I have said so far?
Not yet. Maybe they will have questions and we can answer them.
Okay, excellent.
Also, Ted, we've been joined by Ayhan.
Okay, welcome. Good morning, Ayhan.
Good morning, Ted.
Good morning. Great to hear you both, Özgür and Ayhan. So Ayhan Bey is from Biomod, which was a second company, took part in the UK discovery trip last week on the healthcare side. And both Ayhan and Özgür are quite seasoned executives, having done a lot of networking and are very good at identifying partners. So definitely take the opportunity to ask both Ayhan and Özgür any questions via the chat while I'm speaking now, or at the end in the Q&A session. You can ask questions both in English and in Turkish if you wish. So if there are no questions, Cindy, in the chat, I'm going to move on to the next slide. So in this section, we're going to talk about who is your audience. We need to put ourselves in the shoes of the UK persons that we want to gain contact with. So we have to remember that the people that we're trying to reach are very, very busy. These are senior managers of UK companies, and they get flooded with emails from both within and outside of the UK. An international request is definitely going to be viewed with more skepticism, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but as you all know, we get a lot of emails and you don't know what is real and what is just a kind of a spam or anything like that. So people will naturally kind of disregard things that come that are unusual or not clear. So only contacts from known parties are guaranteed some time. I think this is a universal case in all countries all over the world. So we have a process that you can follow to optimize your chances, but it is very important that you know that only some of your requests will be answered. So if you are sending 10 emails, you may only get 2 or 3 answers. If you send 20 emails, you'll get 4 to 6 answers. So in the end here, it is a part of how you construct your emails, which we'll talk about in a moment, and also about doing the legwork and identifying specific companies and sending to quite a few of them so that you might get some answers. And we're not talking about mass mailing companies. You do have to do your research, and we'll go into that as well as part of this webinar. UK executives are also not used to non-English speakers, and I do have to apologize on behalf of the entire UK and the English-speaking world that we're really quite, I would say, riding the high horse, because so many of us don't speak a second language. So if they don't speak a second language, they're just not used to the idea that people, very intelligent people, sometimes don't speak perfect English. So this is a problem, but it is a problem we have to be aware of. And that means that UK executives sometimes can be quite prejudiced towards people that are not fluent, especially in writing. So it is important that you polish and reread any communications or communiques before sending. And again, we are providing you with a template for that, and the TechU team will be able to help you if you want to make any modifications or add some sentences about how something that you've read about the company and you're not sure how to express it well, Cindy and Daria in the TechU team will be able to help you with that. So let's move on and take a look at what else you have to take care of. UK executives actually know very little about Turkey, and this might come as a surprise to you. We in TechU and all of those who've been involved in the program know that Turkey is basically the second largest country in terms of population in Europe, and that you are a country with many distinguished universities and amazing hospital chains with a lot of R&D, and in your case, no doubt, a very healthy environmental technology, agri-tech, and water treatment industry. But people here in the UK do not know that. They know what they hear in the mass media. So they hear about the currency problems that have been had. They hear about the Syrian crisis and the refugees that have come over your border. They hear what the BBC reports about Turkey. So this is something to take into account, that people simply do not know much about Turkey at all, and especially the names of some very famous universities or big companies may not even be known here in the UK. So what's really important is that you make specific reference to any previous international interactions that you've had, or make very clear references to successes you've had. So if, for example, you want to talk about having sold some of your products to a major company in Turkey, it is important that you actually point out what kind of company that is, rather than just naming the company, because don't take it for granted that the people in the UK will actually know it. To give you an example, what worked really well last week with the healthcare delegation was when somebody said, we have sold to a large Turkish hospital chain that has 22 hospitals all over Turkey. That kind of sentence is much more powerful than saying I've sold to this or that hospital, because they just don't know the names of them. But once again, we will highlight your achievements and opportunities that Turkey offers in general when we follow up with the UK company contacts, and I'll get into that with the process. But essentially, if you send the introductory email that we have helped you create, we can then follow up a few days later and say to these UK entities, actually this company is part of the T-DEB program, which is funded by the Newton Fund. They are selected out of a large number of companies, and obviously the top innovative companies that are now coming to the UK, and we will be able to highlight any achievements that you've made, which always sounds better because it's a third party that's giving some good information about your company. Right, let's move on to the next section. We will go through the process of how to find information about potential partners, so how to research UK companies. So firstly, set realistic goals for yourself. It's really important, whether you're large or small, that you find out whether your specific department or your team that is dealing with T-DEB has the capacity to collaborate with the partner that you're trying to reach. So a very large company is going to have lawyers involved, they're going to have project managers involved. So you have to ask yourself, do you have the capacity to deal with that? And if you think it's too much, then perhaps it's better to go for a slightly smaller company that, just like you, even if you are a large company, if you are a small department within a large company, it is maybe better to deal with a smaller entity in the UK that is able to make decisions quickly, because then you're at the same level of interaction. The second point here is that you have to ask yourself, how many of the rights of your technology are you willing to give away or share? And I'm not saying give away is perhaps the wrong word here on this slide. Of course, you're not giving anything away. You're going to collaborate in a win-win situation, and we'll talk about that. But it is important to know that the UK is very, very heavy on the patent side. They will want to maybe generate joint intellectual property in the future. That means maybe giving away some rights to your background intellectual property. And this is something that you need to be aware of before heading into a collaboration. If you're really not willing to put any of your information out there, or perhaps some of your information is actually only know-how or trade secrets, then it is maybe more important to consider a non-commercial partner that is affiliated with other businesses, because in the end T-DEB is a business-business program, but there are some partners that are more or less concerned about intellectual property, and we can certainly advise you on that if you have any further questions. And the third point here is to ask yourself who is going to be the driving force in the future collaboration. Do you want to be in control yourself, or do you not have the time and you would prefer the other party to be in control? And that is a very fair question, because the T-DEB program has been structured in such a way that it started with you. It started with the UK with the Turkish companies. We went to Turkey to find you and to find out what it is you would like to collaborate on. So actually, at the moment, you are in the driving seat. You are the one who's choosing which UK companies to partner with, and that, you know, was not something that the Newton Fund funders told us we had to do. We could have started with the UK companies and then gone to Turkey, but we chose to start the other way around because we thought this would yield better results. However, by the end of it, you and the UK company might be on exactly the equal footing, or you might also find a UK company that is really, you know, the one who's going to be putting a lot of effort into the collaboration, and you will be following their lead because maybe they have more experience, maybe they have a larger team dedicated to the project, and that is not a bad thing. So take that into account before you contact the individual organizations. In general, you should take that into account, and especially once you meet them in person and you start talking to them, it's important to find out what are the resources that they're willing to put in, and then to figure out who is going to be in control of the collaboration going forward. Finally, I'd say on this slide that only spend time researching companies that are a very good fit for you. What I mean by that is, if you sort of are unsure if a company really is a good fit, maybe send a quick email to some of your colleagues to have a quick look at it and say, is there something here that you think? But drop it sooner rather than later and go on to look at other companies that you can see are a very clear fit, because certainly the UK side will think exactly the same. And if they see that there's quite a distant possible synergy between the two of you, they're very unlikely to answer the email. But if there's a very clear synergy between the two companies, then they will definitely give a positive reply, I think. After you get the first positive reply, the research of course continues, and it should increase. So you'll have to do more information gathering about the company after you get the first reply. So don't spend too much time researching companies before you get a positive reply. Do most of the research after. The next slide is about researching them in two ways. So we think first and foremost, research the online material and prepare some questions. It is really, really important to ask questions, both in the email and when you meet in person. An insightful question shows that you care about the UK partner's work, and it shows that you are confident enough in your own company's abilities that you don't need to just tell them everything about yourself. You need to, you are actually wanting to find out what the UK company has to offer. And that puts a very nice flavor in the mouth of your potential partner. So asking questions is key. The second is researching specific people can be very useful. So I did this when I went to Mexico for my own company. I found some lists of companies, I looked at them, I found out who was in the management team, I Googled the management team individuals themselves and watched some videos that were online about them, and that gave me a feel and a flavor for what kind of people they were and what they were valuing and what they would do. I would say this, if you find a company that's really, really interesting, you may want to do this even ahead of emailing them the first time, but actually I did that after I got some positive responses. So probably researching specific people is something you'll do in the second round after getting the first email back. But you'll have to do that quite quickly because you may want to act on some of the information that you gather. Okay, this next slide is just a good example of some companies that have done a really good job at finding information about potential UK partners. And this is actually Ayhan Bey's example from the healthcare group. So this just shows that in terms of the types of information that Ayhan found, he actually found UK telehealthcare, which you can see under 1A. He found a specific contact person, in fact, 3 of them, Jerry Allmark, Terence Allmark, and 2, Jerry Allmark and Terence Allmark. And he found the email addresses for both of them. And he also found a phone number, which actually turns out to be a mobile number, as I can tell from the number. So with this kind of information, it is a lot that TechU can do to help you. If you just find the name of the organization, then that's more difficult. But if you actually find specific people, then, for example, I myself and other people in our advisory committee that have more of an environmental technologies angle, they will be able to look on their LinkedIn if they are connected directly to these people. Maybe they are a second-degree connection. Maybe there's somebody they can ask to be introduced. So if you find specific people, that is the best thing you can do. And of course, communicate that to the TechU team, to Cindy and to Daria, that you actually have found specific people. And Cindy will tell you later that, of course, there are these online tools for you to feed into this information so that it exists in a Google form, so that we can easily access it. Okay, I'm going to stop at this section again before we go into specific guidance on the first contact and see if there are any questions. Has there been anything, Cindy, in the chat?
Yes, so Burku asks if they will be the only ones trying to reach the companies that they would like to collaborate with, or if we will be representing them to reach those companies.
Okay, so I think, Cindy, you're probably the best person to answer that.
We have a two-pronged approach. So obviously, as Ted said, it is very important that you do the first outreach. No one but you really knows what your partnering objectives are and what you're seeking. So you're in a better place to represent yourself. However, and as Ayhan Bey will share later on, you can leverage us and include us in communications with those companies, and it really does make a difference. I'll say a little bit more about that later on when we get to that section.
Yeah, we'll be speaking about the actual type of email. So you'll see in the type of email that you definitely will be copying us at TechU, and that will help you to be noticed by the UK companies. But did that answer the question? Maybe there's some follow-up.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand that we are making the search about our potential partners for any collaboration. Okay, we make a list, but what I didn't understand is, will you send them the first email about the project, because maybe they don't know about T-DEB project, or maybe they don't know how to go on. So I'm just trying to understand if you will be the first to contact with them, and then we will be following the emails representing ourselves or our technology or any potential collaboration to talk in the mail.
So the answer is that
or
no.
We will be the first.
You will be the first to contact them, but you will be contacting them with a type of email that has a link to the T-DEB project, where we have specifically outlined the kinds of things that the UK companies will want to know. So the tdebproject.com website has a section on why Turkey and so on. So usually we'll get to it in a few slides. The first email needs to be quite brief, because there are some things that happen with the UK executives, but I think it's probably universal for all kinds of executives. If you get a very long email, even if it seems interesting, you'll usually just flag it and say, I'll read it later, right? Because it's too long. And then what happens is you forget about it. So the most important thing is that the first email is very brief, and it's actually important that the email comes from somebody who is important in your organization. So even if you for example if you yourself are the chief executive, then that's perfect, you can send that. But if you are a business development associate and you're sending emails on behalf of your organization, maybe you can get permission to send it on behalf of your CEO, so that it says clearly in the email who it's from. It's from the top of the organization of your Turkish organization, and it will have a reference to the project, so that it's very easy for them to just click on the link and see, aha, this is Newton Fund sponsored. They can find out more about the Newton Fund, and you will also copy Cindy or Daria on this and say, for any questions regarding the UK program, Cindy and Daria at TechU are available for this. And I will show you a specific example of that in a few slides time.
Okay, thanks.
May I ask
You're
something?
welcome. Of course, go ahead.
Okay. The problem with the mails, I guess, is that the threshold for that mail is that opening the mail, right? So if they see a mail from my side or from my company or any other people from the program, most probably they won't open it. That's the thing with LinkedIn mails and with the mails that you send to anonymous people, right? So don't you think it's a better idea to put some, like, I don't know, for Newton Fund to send these mails like an introduction to the people?
Here, can I call upon Özgür and Ayhan to share a little bit their experiences in sending emails themselves?
Yeah, I may share some of my experiences. The point there is that you should find some company that you can collaborate with. So maybe Ted is going to explain the first contact mails. TechU, in our experience, prepare some template that you could use that also emphasizes the TechU and Innovate UK in the play. So it's still impressive if you use that template and also talk about some details about yourself and the collaboration points, rather than TechU's just sharing some general mail to all of the companies. It's more effective that you emphasize some specific points that you can collaborate with the companies that is potentially your partners in this discovery trip. And TechU will also be helping you in that, because you put Cindy and Nana or Daria in the CC, and if you collaborate with Cindy and Nana, or just correct me, Cindy, if you have some modifications in the plan or flow. If you collaborate with them, then they can also be contacting the companies that have not get back to you in the first contact. So you should be working and communicating, Cindy, all the time, so that you get the most out of the companies you have the first contact.
And that's a very good point, Ayhan, about the follow-up. So thank you for the question, Erkin. Erkin, we have thought about the idea, the opposite. So when you suggest, how about sending an email first from TechU on behalf of the Newton Fund, this is something we thought about, but actually the reason we've chosen to do it so that you send the first contact is because, first of all, the subject line is almost as important. Actually, I personally think it's more important than the email itself. So the subject line is the most important thing in terms of opening the email. So we will work on that with you and we'll show you a template. But the reason we want you to send the first contact is because that gives us the opportunity to follow up. So if we send the first one and then you follow up, they can still ignore it. But if you send the first one and then 3 days later I send an email or Cindy sends an email to say, oh, hello, Belinda. For example, I know the director of the Agritech East cluster. Her name is Belinda Clark. And I know her very well because we used to work closely with each other a few years ago. So if you send the first email to her, if you're in the Agritech business, then I would then 3 days later be able to send an email saying, oh, hi, Belinda, maybe this fell between the cracks, but this company that contacted you 3 days ago is actually part of this program. They're doing these really exciting work. If you have any questions about it, feel free to reach out. It becomes much less formal, and I'm able to then chase them on your behalf afterwards. So I think the combination of having a very clear subject line that makes it exciting enough to open the email, then the information about how to, how the T-DEB project works, and the fact that there's actually something in it for the company because they can go to Turkey on this mission and they can then collaborate and maybe they get grant funding through the support that we provide. So this is what we have tried, and we were successful with in the healthcare cohort that came last week. In fact, I was very proud that that all 15 companies that were part of that have had several meetings, and now some of them are progressing very quickly to a collaboration. So it has worked for the first cohort.
Okay, thanks. One more thing, actually, can I?
Of course.
Okay, there's a question from Jeran about the trip dates, and we talk about it in the first minutes of the meeting. Cindy, I want you to know that 3rd of June is the holidays in Turkey, so this whole week I don't think any of us can participate. Just keep in mind, it's Bayram holidays. You know, like everybody goes to holiday then.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, just this whole week is, I don't know, people also can comment on it, but this whole week is, the entire country is closed, so almost.
Okay, thank you for the good questions. I will now move on to the next section where we'll give you some guidance on the first contact and the follow-up to the first contact. So on this next slide here, we're going to use a two-pronged approach to find partners. And I know this is a very busy slide, but it's giving you a flavor for the types of trade associations that TechU is able to reach out to and get either we will have event space through these trade associations. We will have access to the members directories, and these links on this website, which you will be available to you after this webinar, of course. You just click on these links and you will find a long list of companies that belong to these trade associations. So these are similar to chambers of commerce, but they are more specifically associations that gather members to discuss problems and issues that they all have in common. So they have a list of several hundred companies that are usually divided into different sectors as well. So you'll be able to click on these and you'll be able to look through more specifically companies that are of interest to you. So the number one of the two-pronged approach is that you click on these links, find companies, and start making your lists. And the second part of this, of course, is that we on the TechU side will be reaching out to these organizations and introducing them to your online profiles, which the TechU team and you have spent some really good time polishing. And I think I'm very proud of the way that looks and the website is. I think this is just the right amount of information for people to click on and read to decide if they want to collaborate with you. Okay, so with the company profiles live and the first outreach done, you should send the first email. Yes, go ahead.
Just a quick question before going this slide. Is there any link for especially material science or composite materials, this kind of?
Yes, sorry, the slide was
not
getting very small. So yes, I will add. I will send you directly specific links for you only.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I realized that this cohort is more broad than the last healthcare cohort that we had. The last cohort that came to the UK last week was on medical technology, so devices and diagnostics, as well as biotech drug development. So that's, there are some differences there as well. So we did actually reach out to several different trade associations, and certainly if you feel like any of these links or the links that Cindy and the team send to you do not cover the types of companies that you think are interesting to you, please contact us, probably get on the phone with Cindy and explain what kind of companies, maybe find a few examples of the types of UK companies you have, and then we get a better understanding of what kind of trade associations we can reach out to. Because the truth is, there are many trade associations in the UK, so this is a great resource for finding companies. Okay, once you have identified some companies and you have a list of them, you of course want to send this first email. So we will follow up, as I mentioned before, with the companies that are most important to you. So that's why it's important for you to keep a list of the companies that you are reaching out to so that we can see which ones. But of course, you'll also be copying the TechU staff, so they will keep a track of your communication so that we can make the most of them and follow up when necessary. So update the list of specific companies, and the people also, UK people will also be clicking on your profiles and expressing their own interests. So when we reach out through these trade associations, there actually will be a bannered email that will be sent out to the trade associations in general, saying that these companies from the Newton Fund project T-DEB are coming to the UK on these and these dates. If you want and have interest, please check out the link and express your interest for specific companies. So some companies did actually come through this, but I have to be very clear that the majority of companies that the last cohort found in the UK was through their own efforts and their own emailing. That is generally what happens, is most people will respond to a personalized email much more than a general send out through an email list. But we are doing both, just so you know, we're doing both. Okay, use the first email format. It's okay to change it. We'll show it to you in the following slides. And we can also help you with the English if you want to change it and you want to add some extra information. And both Ayhan and Özgür made use of this in the last cohort. And as mentioned, we'll follow up with your email and we'll increase your chances of a speedy, positive response. Okay, a couple of small things to remember. 2 slides about how UK people will perceive various emails. It is actually better to be too formal than too informal. So people do like to be addressed with Mr. and Miss and their last name. So dear Mr. Johnson or dear Dr. Johnson, that kind of addressing will be better than hi Steve, because obviously you've never met this person before. This is different in different countries. I'm half Swedish, so if this was Sweden, you'd be perfectly okay to write first name on your first email, but that's not the case in the UK. Okay, to introduce your company in brief is important, but really in brief. So literally you would say, this is company, so, dear Dr. Johnson, we are a Turkish company focusing on water treatment and in this and this sector. That's a kind of a one sentence, who are you? And then the reasons for your contact. We have read about your company online, or we think that we have some synergies between the development programs that you are showing on your website and what we're doing, and we'd like to meet. So I'll go into more details on the next slide. Be courteous and allow enough time for them to reply, of course. So waiting a minimum of 3 days is an absolute must. People really don't like it when you send a follow-up email the next day or 2 days after. 3 days is really the minimum, but a lot of people need a week. The difference though is, and this is why we chose for you to send the first contact, is that if you send the first contact, then TechU can send an email 2 or 3 or 4 days later saying, if you have any further questions about the T-DEB program, don't hesitate to reach out. That then is not seen as a chasing, because it's just a follow-up by another third party, which is us. So I think this is why we've chosen to do it the way we do it. Second major point here is it's better to be too brief than too lengthy. As I explained before, long emails just get, at best they get flagged, or they don't even get read at all. But the problem is long emails usually are forgotten, because people don't, when they open up the email in the morning, they don't have time to read a long email. They'll just read a short one. So you have to get to the point in the first 2 to 3 sentences. And then I think it's important to provide only one link, and that will be the link to your company profile on the tdebproject.com website, because there, if they click on that, they get your information directly about you, both the people and the company and your partnering objectives, but they can also click back and look at the general T-DEB project and the Newton Fund, and they can also click on your specific URL to look at your specific company. So through one link, they're only basically 2 clicks away from everything they would need through that email. Okay, and an important thing to remember about what collaboration means in the UK and in the English-speaking world in general is that this is really a win-win scenario. This is both parties will share in the gains of a project in multiple ways. So it's not a contracting situation, it's not a sale, it's a collaboration. If any one party is simply being paid for what they're doing, that would not be considered a collaboration. That would be considered a subcontract. I think that's general world over, but it's important to highlight that you really, both you and the UK company, you should feel that there is a win-win situation. Otherwise, it is not considered a true R&D collaboration. And it's important to point out that a UK company will look at you and say, is this a company that has something to offer to me? And the second question they will ask themselves is, can I offer something to the company? And only if both of those questions are a yes, will they be interested in entering into collaboration. So don't be discouraged if many companies are not getting back to you. Maybe the answer to the second question of, can I as a UK company offer something to this Turkish company? If the answer to that is no, because they're really busy at the moment, they have too many collaborations already, their team is drowning in operational work, there could be 1,000 different reasons why they're not ready to collaborate and give something. So that's not your doing. And the last point here is entering into collaboration is different from negotiating a subcontract or negotiating a sale. There is no winner or loser. There is no upper hand. Both parties should be happy when the other one is succeeding. And that's definitely the UK business mindset. If they feel that any one party is trying to take advantage of the other party or is trying to push their own agenda too hard and is not having a collaborative I used the word negotiating, but having a collaborative discussion type spirit, if they don't have that, they will feel like this is not a good collaboration. They want to feel like you are partners. It's almost, without being corny, it's almost like getting married. You're both giving and taking, and whoever success you get on both sides, that is success for each individual party as well. Okay, some tips for an introductory email. So now we're getting into the details of this, and I think we're doing okay on time, although I'm trying to speed up a little bit. So, as mentioned, dear Dr., Mr. or Miss, the MS is the general form for any woman, whether she is married or not. Okay, so you don't need to know whether she's married. You don't need to put Mrs., just put MS, that's fine. It's better to use their specific name than to say sir or madam. Some people write dear sir, madam to a general info@whatevercompany.com. I would really strongly discourage that. If you cannot find a specific person at the company to contact, that is a point when you will then come to TechEU and say, I really like this company, but I cannot for the life of me find an individual to contact. I cannot find an individual email. That is when we will use our advisory network to see on LinkedIn if we find some individuals who are working there. So it is really important that we find an individual to contact. That's much higher chance of getting a response. I know that a lot of this is general, and a lot of you already know this, so I apologize that I'm repeating things that many of you know, but there are different people also who will watch this webinar later on, who may be younger companies who don't know this. So obviously avoid any first names like, hi Steve, we've never met, or you don't know me, but those kind of emails, they get removed immediately, they never get read. So start with something specific. For example, I read with interest your article on, or I read with interest your development of this new water treatment facility, or this new irrigation system, or this new material science project that you have, or these new solar panels. This specifically in the first sentence, you're pointing out that you know something about them. That's really useful. And then introduce your company. It's better to introduce your company than to introduce yourself. It creates a stronger position for you because you are confident to represent the entire company. That they then feel that you are actually representing, you are a position in power of your company. So you say XYZ company is an agri-tech, energy or water treatment or materials company. We're visiting the UK on the 22nd to 24th of May. This is just an example, but for anybody who's watching the webinar, this is of course will be modified for the dates that you are coming. Under the auspice of the UK Turkish Newton Fund program, would you or one of your colleagues be available for a brief phone call to discuss if there are mutual interests that would warrant a meeting? And then of course there will be a link. So finish with a sentence about more information. You can read more about us, our reasons for visiting the UK, and our program at blah, blah, blah, and you will have your company name link, not the T-DEB but your specific company name. And then we look forward to hearing from you. Best regards, Dr. or Mr. or Miss. And I think what's really important is include a direct phone number to you. If you're unwilling to do so, I understand that. Some people prefer to keep these things private. Then maybe you can your switchboard, but actually it would be much better if you include a direct phone number, because some people will actually call you back instead of emailing you back. That has happened in some cases. Any questions up until this point? I take that as a no, so I will move on to the next slide. This is actually the overview of the entire email. Go ahead, yeah, question?
How long before do you think we have to send these emails? For instance, if our visit is in the 3rd week of May, do we have to send these emails the beginning of April or a date much closer to our trip? What do you think is the best option?
So usually I would say anything that's within 2 to 3 months of when you're coming is perfectly fine. It's also okay to send it 2 or 3 weeks before, but if you're sending these emails less than 2 weeks before you go, it's very unlikely you're going to be able to meet. So you need to send them at least 2 to 3 weeks before, but my suggestion is send them already now. As soon as you identify companies, you start sending them. And Ayhan and Özgür, do you want to make some comment on when you started to send emails and how quickly you got responses?
I would say now, because
yeah.
Usually UK companies make schedules for 1 month or 2 months after, because they are busy, and so as early as possible you send emails, so it's you will have a higher chance to have a meeting when you go to UK.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Özgür, because once you send the mail, then you try to organize the time for the call, given that you get the response. So that's maybe another week, and when you start talking, maybe you need to share some details. So that would be an advantage if you started contacting the companies as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ayhan and Özgür, and there will be time to discuss and ask questions directly of Ayhan and Özgür in just a few moments. So I'm now going to move on to what materials you should have ready with the UK company when they want more information. So if you start sending emails right now, a company might turn around straight away and say, this sounds interesting, can you send me some more information about your company? And so then you need to be ready and have a slide deck in English. Now, if you don't have a slide deck in English yet, you don't wait to send the emails, but start to work on the English slide deck as soon as possible. And please use the TechU staff to review your slide decks, because we can help you with the English, the nomenclature. And even if your English is very good, there will be some terms that are maybe slightly different. So we'll definitely help you with that. And if you're not used to doing slide decks for collaboration, because most of your slide decks might be for investors, then also we have some tips and tricks on how to change it so it's less of a pushy, salesy investor type slide deck, that it's more about what kind of collaboration you could do. So this slide is about that. So it should be about 10 to 15 slides, the slide deck. It should show data that supports your innovation. I'm not talking about really detailed scientific data, although you can have some of that in there. It should be simple to understand graphics, and it should specifically be data that supports your company in general, like the number of collaborations you've had, or the fact that maybe you have collaborated with some other company in Germany or in France or in Italy before. In very early in your slide deck, if you can show that you already are a company that is used to doing this kind of thing that you're trying to do with the UK company, that if you do have that already, you must include it, because that will really help you. If you don't have it, it's not the end of the world. Then you should point out more of what kind of products your company has in general, and that you're already on the market with some of them, or that you're close and that you've tested your prototype with others. Any kinds of things that show that you are a serious company that has developed several products or are developing several exciting products. Any types of achievements of your company will be useful, and importantly, show a team and resources slide. And what I mean by resources is, it could be just that you have your own laboratory or workshop, you have your capability to produce your own prototypes, for example. So don't just include only 2 people from your management team. Maybe put the main people from the management team, maybe put a picture, if you have a group picture of your people, if you're a slightly larger company, then again that also gives the other company a flavor of, aha, this is a real outfit, this is a company that's actually going to be around for the next 2 years. If you're a startup, then what you have to do is push much more emphasis on your technology and the excitement around that, and that you have patents and so on. So it depends a little bit on the size of your company, but don't forget the team and resources slide, and definitely don't forget to highlight your achievements so far as a general. Even if it's not specifically for the product you want to collaborate on, it is good that you have some achievements for the company in general. It's also possible for you to have a flyer that covers the same kind of thing above. If it's a flyer, then you could make a 2-page flyer. Some of the other companies in the T-DEB project have had this, but most people usually have slide decks. It's really up to you whether you want to have 1 or 2 or both. If you do have a flyer that's a 2-pager, that is of course the first thing that you will send. And then if the company asks for more information, then you can send a more detailed slide deck. Remember, however, that to begin with, all of these should be non-confidential. So in other words, this is all information that you're happy to share, because you won't be signing any confidentiality agreements until after you've met these companies. That's the usual practice. Okay, your research and preparation doesn't stop there, of course. As soon as you've had a positive response and you have your slide deck ready, you should create and add a specific slide for the organization that you are reaching out to. So what I usually do with my company as a CEO of a vaccine development company is I have a general slide deck ready, but I always add a slide at the end where I say potential mutual interests. And there I will myself spend a little bit of time to think, okay, I've identified these types of programs at the other company. That seems interesting, and I might ask some questions. Are you developing this program? If yes, this could be a potential collaboration spot. And then ask some more questions. Any other areas that you would be interested in collaborating with us on, so that it becomes an interactive and more tailor-made slide deck. People will really love that if you have that. It's a really useful thing to add. And then go into more depth on the UK company that's interested, and do more research to identify any technologies or know-how that they have, the specific technologies that you think could fit with their work, and any mutual product orientation that you could discuss for a joint R&D project. So even if the company you're trying to reach is maybe in a slightly different space. I'll give you an example. We had a medical technology company that is doing patches. So they have a design program for making patches for cardio, for heart surgery and so on. But what they really need is they need a biocomposite manufacturer. So maybe some of the companies you want to reach out to are not exactly in the same space that you, but they are a company that makes a new type of material for your product. Or maybe they have some manufacturing capability that you don't have. Or maybe they have a user experience design process that could be useful for making your prototype more user-friendly. So there are different ways to identify companies and their capabilities. Okay, the next steps. TechU will of course continue outreach campaign with the trade associations. If you've not completed your list of contacts on the Google Doc company profile, then please do so as soon as possible, and don't wait to upload everything. Use the email template to start sending emails to companies. I would say aim to send at least 20 emails to 20 organizations, so that you might get about 4 to 5 good meetings set up. Ayhan and Oscar, can you give a quick feeling of how many emails you sent before you came and how many meetings you had?
I sent a few emails, about 5 or 6, not too much, but I had a strategy. It was enough. But I don't know how much he sent.
I think it was about 20. Yeah, it was between 15 and 20, about 16 or 18.
Good, good. And I think both of you had similar number of meetings. Ayhan, I think you had a few more because you probably sent more emails. But
Yeah.
as Özgür said, Özgür, you sent a few very directed emails because you really did your research on those specific organizations. So,
yeah.
You know, you can spend more time on each organization, but still, if you want to have at least 4 or 5 good meetings, my suggestion is to send at least 20 emails. You know, it's extremely unlikely that you're going to get 20 meetings from sending 20 emails. It's very, very, very unlikely. So there's no danger. It's no danger of you being overwhelmed by meetings. So
Ted, may I suggest a point to the companies?
Absolutely, please go ahead.
Thank you. What I did, I studied deeply the companies that I want to contact, and and I noted how to say how can I contribute to their work, because they are very busy and they have a schedule to do business and so on, so on. So you intervene to their life. I sent 3 or 5 emails, I don't know, but all the emails were proposing a contribution to their work, and so I always get a reply. So I would suggest to study deeply the company that you want to work with, and propose them a contribution from your side.
Yes, that's very good advice. That's definitely worthwhile, is to spend enough time so that you feel you can propose something specific. People in the UK, they will be very happy for you to propose something very specific in the first email. If it's not the right thing, that's still better than making a general one. So even if you propose something specific and it turns out that, you know, maybe they just decided to stop that program or something, they will still appreciate your email. They will still say, oh, thank you very much. Actually, we just stopped that program, but I'm be really interested to talk to you anyway. That will, you know, it will, whatever you send, even if the specific thing you identified is slightly wrong, it's better than sending a general one just saying, you know, we're in water treatment and you're in water treatment, so, you know, maybe we can meet. That's not going to work as well. Okay, I will, this is the last slide, I believe, so we'll have time to talk with Ayhan and Özgür. The last thing I'll say before that, though, is that the TechU staff will, of course, follow up from your email 3 to 5 days after being copied on your email. So this will show the UK people that you have support from us, while it relieves you from having to follow up at the risk of seeming like someone who chases them. So this is why we've set it up this way. So we will be chasing the second email, and you will just be sending the first email. The important thing, of course, is to copy Daria. Daria is the primary person in terms of logistics and everything, and Cindy, of course, is the primary person in terms of being the managing director. So, but copying Daria is the best way, because she will keep track of all of your communications. So I believe, how far are we from the, yes, okay, this is the last slide here. So strategies from fellow Turkish T-DEB companies. This is you know, I want Ayhan and Özgür to fill in on this, but this is input not only from the two of them, but from the entire previous cohort, that the impact, there's a real impact of having arranged meetings before you arrive. So you have to, you cannot wait and come on this trip without having pre-arranged meetings. You will maybe meet some companies, but in the general networking events, but they will be serendipitous. They will be chance encounters. So it's much more important that, as we've said all along, you send specific emails and have those meetings. There is an impact of having TechU in the calls. So Ayhan, for example, Ayhan Bey used Cindy to be on the first calls with any companies, so that Cindy could explain to the companies the involvement of the UK government and the Newton Fund, and how this Turkish company got to be selected and what we can provide in the future. And it's important that at the networking events, you emphasize the potential impact of different associations that we're part and support of. So, for example, on this trip that we just had last week, we involved the Turkish-British Chamber of Commerce. We were at the Turkish Trade Center. There were trade association representatives. We were at the Turkish Embassy. So obviously, these are spaces where we can meet with companies. So there will be, during your trip, there will be actual spaces that are reserved just for partnering meetings. We have tables, we have meeting rooms, and you will be able to identify those time slots together with Cindy, and then you can send to your company saying, we are going to be at the Turkish Trade Center, or we're going to be at such and such place, and we have the potential to meet there. This also raises the level of your interaction, because the UK company knows that there are entities supporting you that are stationed here in the UK. And it's, of course, a general point, the second to last, is that it's really important to have a strategy before you arrive. I go back to the very early slides, which I said, think about what kind of collaboration you want to have. Do you really want to reach out to a large company? Is it better for you to reach out to a smaller company? Who needs to be in control? Do you have all the resources, and so on? And last but not least, don't forget about the power of the group. You should research the other companies that are coming with you on the same trip, because all of you will be ambassadors for each other. And Ayhan, Özgür, and the team last week, they were really good at, during the networking, as they were talking to someone, they said, oh yeah, by the way, I know this other company that's doing something more like you. Let me introduce you. And if you all help each other like that, you will all come out better in the end. And maybe that's a good place to stop and say, Ayhan and Özgür, do you want to say some general words about that, and then have any question and answers for all of us?
Yeah, I would like to add some points that thanks.
And by
just
Cindy, at this point,
yeah.
do we want to just do it in Turkish? It's easier for everyone.
Yes, if it's easier.
Yeah. So Ayhan and Özgür, why don't you can speak Turkish if you want.
Okay. Merhaba herkese. Ya burada programda tabii değişiklikler olabilecektir. Bizim genelde health tech üzerine ve biyotek üzerine firmalar gitti, ama ben yani bizim oradaki üzerinden, deneyimimiz üzerinden birkaç şey paylaşayım. Bizim oradaki programımızda genelde 4 tane vardı, karakteristik session vardı. Bunlardan 4'te biri sizin organize ettiğiniz firmalarla görüşmeleriniz şeklinde gitti. 4'te biri TEKÜ'nün organize ettiği ve insanları davet ettiği seanslar şeklinde. 4'te biri TEKÜ'nün organize etmediği ama katılım için TEKÜ'nün register olduğu session'lardı. 4'te birinde de TED'in bahsettiği vizitler oldu. Yani elçiliğe gittik, Trade Center'a gittik, oradaki insanlarla tanıştık. Şimdi bunun 4'te biri sizin önceden ayarlayacağınız firmalar olduğu için, yani orayı iyi değerlendirmeniz, zamanınızın 4'te birini efektif kullanmanız anlamına geliyor aslında. Benim orada denediğim şey şuydu, hani siz tabii değerlendirirsiniz, bu en iyi yöntem demiyorum, ama her hafta en azından 5 tane firmaya ben mail atmaya çalıştım ve bunların hepsinde de Cindy'yi ve Derya'yı maillere CC'de Cindy ile Derya'yı da koydum ve her haftanın sonunda da Cindy ve Derya'ya bana geri dönmeyen firmaların listesini attım. Yani böylece hem yani organize bir şekilde onlarla görüşmeye çalıştım, hem de Cindy ve Derya'nın follow up etmesi için yani onlara bir liste vermiş oldum. Çünkü firma sayısı da çok fazla olduğu için bir yerden sonra onlar da takip etmekte zorlanabilir. Hani 3-5 gün sonra cevap dönmediğinde onlar devreye girecek, ama yardımcı olmanızda, onlarla koordine olmanızda fayda var. Bir de TED'in bahsettiği Cindy ile beraber konuşmalara, kollara katılımla ilgili ben çok faydalı olduğunu düşünüyorum. Hani orada size yardım etmesi anlamına değil ama öncesinde birisinin TQ'dan bahsetmesi, sizin işte TQ'nun seçtiği firmalar arasında olduğunuzu söylemesi, Innovate UK'in de bunu desteklediğini söylemesi zaten baştan güzel bir şey oluyor, introduction oluyor. Onun sonrasında siz kendinizi anlatmaya başladığınızda yaklaşım biraz daha farklı oluyor. Yani siz orada onlardan bir şey almaya çalışan bir firma değil, zaten seçilmiş bir firmasınız ve onlarla collaboration yaptığınız durumda da yani bir şey fundlar alma, beraber grantler alma, beraber para kazanma olanağınız var. Yani bunu gördüğünde konuşma biraz daha beraber bir şey neler yapabiliriz'e doğru gidiyor. O anlamda ben Cindy ile beraber o konuşmaları yapmanızı tavsiye ederim. Yani burada hani confidential bir şey varsa tabii onu gene koordine edersiniz ama ben faydalı olduğunu gördüm Cindy ile beraber konuşmalara girmede. Sonrasında follow up etmede de Cindy ile yani sık sık konuşmanızda fayda var bence. Ne kadar fazla konuşursanız o kadar iyi organize oluyor. Şimdi 1/4 bunu kaplıyor. Siz ne kadar çok konuşup firma ile organize olursanız o 1/4'lik self-organized meeting kısmı o kadar dolu geçiyor ve efektif geçiyor.
Bir şey sorabilir miyim? Çok
Tabii.
pardon, hemen aradan kaçmasın diye. Self-organized kısmında peki biz bu kişilerle nerede buluşuyoruz? Yani hepsi Londra based değilse onları mı davet ediyoruz net bir yere? Biz mi oraya gidiyoruz?
TQ'nun orada sizin orada bulunduğunuz durumdaki zamanı zaten çok organize etmiş oluyorlar. Yani bizim 4 gün boyunca oradaydık. Çok intens bir program var zaten. Onlar saat her şeyi organize etmiş oluyorlar ve size de zaten o aralıkları söylüyorlar. Siz davet ederken o aralıklardaki yere davet ediyorsunuz. Onlar için de zaten online registration formları falan ayarlamış oluyorlar. Yani organizasyon konusunda gayet başarılı TQ. Yani hem çok iyi organize ediyor hem de size oradaki geçişlerle ilgili bilgi de veriyor. Dolayısıyla siz oraları
Yani firmaları biz
kullanıyorsunuz.
Londra'ya
Siz
çağırıyoruz. Bunu
evet
anlıyorum
evet.
buradan.
Evet
Ya
siz
iki
davet
türlü yani
ediyorsunuz.
siz de gidebilirsiniz onların yanına. Çünkü adam hani gelmek istemeyebiliyor veya uygun
Evet,
olmayabilir.
tam
Sen
onu
gel diyor
diyecektim.
falan. Bunda problem yok. Ama hani yani ben mesela gittiğim yerlere ben bindim otobüse gittim kendim. TQ zaten otobüs biletlerinizi bile veriyor sağ olsun. Yani şey yapmıyorlar ve hani oraya gidebilmeniz için gideceğiniz yere gidebilmeniz için gerekli her türlü katkıyı da size sağlıyorlar. İşte nasıl gideceğin, ne yapacağın vesaire falan onları yapıyorlar. Hani ben kimseyi çağırmadım çünkü yani daha doğrusu çağırdım
Tamam,
insanlar.
süper.
Olduğum yere
Yani
gelmek istemedi. Ben onlara gittim.
evet, onu diyecektim. Çünkü daha büyük firmalarla görüşmeyi planlıyoruz biz ve hani bu firmaların kendi üretim yerlerini bırakıp geleceklerini pek düşünmüyoruz. Biz gidersek hani
Gelebiliyor da
görüşmeye daha
adamlar.
açık
Yani
olacaklarını düşünüyoruz. O yüzden
Yani TQ
okey, ama girişlerde
organizasyonlarında
sıkıntı
bir
yok.
toplantı alanı veya buluşma yeri size sağlıyor bir binada
Tamam.
vesaire falan bir yerde. Onu sağlıyor. Oraya getirip orada özelde görüşebileceğiniz yerler ayarlıyor size. Onda sıkıntı yok. Ama hani kendiniz de
Süper.
gidebiliyorsunuz.
Ya ilk
Tamam, çok
denemeyi oraya
teşekkürler.
getirme yönünde kullanırsanız bence daha faydalı olur. Çünkü program çok yoğun. Hani sizin gittiğiniz
Evet.
durumda programın geri kalanına yetişmekte zorlanabilirsiniz. Başka şansınız yoksa tabii ki hani Özgür de öyle yaptı ve fayda gördü. Ama yani seçeneğiniz varsa çağırmanızda fayda var. Çünkü program devam ediyor ve yani bir günün içerisinde çok yer geziyorsunuz, çok kişiyle görüşüyorsunuz. Kaçırmamanız için onların gelmesi daha olur, faydalı olur sizin için. Gelebiliyorlarsa tabii.
Yani katılıyorum. Öncelikle bence de Ayhan'ın dediğini yapmak lazım. Ben mecburiyetten gittim. Gelmek istemediler. Ben gitmek zorunda kaldım.
Sorunuza cevap oldu mu yoksa ben birkaç şey daha söyleyebilir miyim? Alo. Alo.
Hello, Ted, still here. Anybody? I'm trying to follow.
I'm here too.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone? I don't know. Of course, I don't understand the Turkish, so I'm not sure if you were in the middle of a sentence or if you finished.
Yeah, we are just saying great things about Teki. Teki is a great organizer, and the slots are really good organized. And you have, let me just go on with English. Maybe you have some modifications and corrections. I was a little uncomfortable about that, if I'm saying something wrong or modified version. So I was just talking about there were 4 versions of characteristics with the visits and networking sessions. The first one was the self-organized, where you're inviting the companies you have arranged. So I talked about the strategy I followed, having Cindy in the calls and the empowerment Cindy provided. So I advised having Cindy in the call. And the second kind of organization was the sessions that TechU organized, and those sessions has really key people attending. So maybe you can have a look at the people attending the session and have some former prior strategy to talk to those people. TechU is also sharing the people attending the meeting sessions, networking sessions. So you may have a look at the people attending so that you can have a prior strategy to talk with. That would be more advantages, not just to introduce yourself, but also offer a second step so that you can move forward after having the network.
No, that's a really good point. And the point I think about the experts that we invite, to some of them, for example, in last week with the healthcare cohort, we had a representative, David Perry, from the South East Health Technologies Alliance, and he was giving an introduction to how to work with the NHS, which is the National Health Service. So as in a similar vein, it's very likely that there will be some specific people involved that know the ecosystem of the UK very well. You'll get to meet them as part of that. So if it's in water treatment or agri-tech or materials or energy, you'll meet some people that we have prearranged and Cindy and Daria will of course let you know who those people are. So doing some research on who they are and thinking of some specific questions that you'd like to ask them is probably a good idea.
And just I'd like to point you all to the chat. I have just pasted a link there. I don't know if everyone can see it, and click on it. It takes you to the schedule for the discovery trip we just had last week. Yours will be sort of along the same lines. As I said, it's a bit different because the environmental tech group is more diverse. But essentially, what we urged companies to focus on was on partnering meetings. So we're really pushing you to contact UK companies so that when you do come to the UK, you have face-to-face meetings as opposed to just depending on random encounters during networking events. So for example, on the 12th of March, as Ted said, we had a welcoming workshop by one of the trade associations. We'll try and have something similar for you as well to introduce you to the UK landscape in your sector. Then we had a partnering space after lunch. The partnering space that you see there was at central offices in London. This was space for you to tell your UK company, say, I can come to you or we can meet here. And you know, the TechU team will be there and we can ask them questions, or you can ask any additional questions about the program, etc. So it's good to go to.
I'll just interject there quickly, Cindy, and say that it's really important if you're going to have a lot of meetings, I would suggest to the UK companies to come to the partnering location, because you may have 2 hours where you can meet 5 different companies in 2 hours. But of course, if you go to their individual offices, especially if they are on the outskirts of London or maybe even further afield, you will have much less companies you can meet in the same amount of time. So it's not at all rude to ask the UK companies to make a small journey into central London when you have come all the way from Turkey. They will not be offended at this, and it actually is a sign of their interest. If they're not willing to get, you know, on the train for half an hour or an hour when you have flown all the way from the other side of Europe, then they are, you know, not interested enough. So be confident in that, and invite them to the meeting space, because you will be able to meet more companies that way.
Mm-hmm. On that same day, at the end, you see we had a networking event. So it's a combination of partnering spaces, dedicated places in central London for you to arrange your meetings, and we'll let you know in advance as soon as we can when these spaces are, so that you can already, as soon as you start landing meetings, you can say, okay, can we meet at the Field Fisher offices between 2 and 5? And we can start scheduling those for you. The networking events, as I said, they could be very interesting. You will meet very interesting people, but it will not necessarily be directly relevant for you. But in these cases, what was nice during the networking events that we had last week was that you could speak to a lot of different people, learn about opportunities that maybe you wouldn't have solved. You could be the ambassador for other companies in your cohort, and share information with each other.
I may add something about the networking sessions, Cindy, if you're finished.
Of course.
About the networking sessions that TechU organized, the companies attending there have first a look at the profile pages, and they know what you're doing before they attend the meeting, so they're coming to meet you. That was what I experienced in the networking sessions about the companies that I have not arranged before, but other companies attending the session. I met with Beko, for example, and Natasha from Beko wanted to meet with me instead of me finding her, because she investigated the profile page and knew what we did and was interesting for her. So what I'm trying to say is that your profile page should be representing you and be attractive, so that people will want to share some collaboration scenarios with you as much as possible. And about the other, yeah.
Just a quick question, sorry. Our exact dates are not set yet, so how we can email people about the time and the place that we can meet? So I think we need to, for the agriculture, agritech and material part of this cohort, we ask you to set the dates as early as possible, so we can ask people to come around.
Mm-hmm. In fact, you don't have to talk about the dates in your first mail. That's my thought. I don't know what Cindy and Ted is gonna say, but you don't have to talk about the dates, the specific meeting hours in the first mails. But you should have the first contact in your first mails. Have the talk afterwards, and let Cindy talk about the schedule and represent the specific times. That's my suggestion.
Yeah, you're right.
You can also say, we know it's in May, and we know it's going to probably be the second half of May if you do need to give dates. But yes, we will get on that. As I said, we're working quite hard trying to pin down dates.
Okay.
Yeah, the reason we haven't pinned down the exact date yet is because Cindy is talking to some associations that may have similar events that are ongoing at the same time. So as part of the last cohort that came last week, we managed to co-organize 2 different types of events where there are already a lot of companies coming there anyway. So we are just trying to make the most of the exact dates. But I'm sure that Cindy and the team will get back to you as soon as possible, within probably the next week, with more firm dates. But as Ayhan said, don't let that stop you. Start sending emails now already. With
Sure.
general
In the first email, we don't emphasize the exact dates, but I'm just trying to understand how soon we will learn about the exact dates. If in a week, it will be okay.
Cindy?
Yes, within a week, maximum within 2 weeks. Yep.
I
Okay,
would
thanks.
suggest, may I tell something, Özgür? I would suggest to aim a first contact rather than to meet at first glance. Then you can arrange the meeting, no problem. But having the first contact is much more important.
Yeah, you mean having a first phone call, for example? That's what you
for
mean.
example, or video or e-meeting for video,
Or a
video
Skype, or yeah.
conference.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, thanks. And can I ask more questions if we have time? It's 12, but
Of course, go ahead. Cindy, I'm gonna have to leave, but if you want to, oh no, actually, I can keep it open, but I have to leave in a few moments. But you can stay on and keep talking if you wish.
no, okay, no problem. I can also ask in the email.
No, it's
I will
okay.
No,
It's okay.
it's only me personally. Cindy is still there, and if Ayhan and Özgür are happy to stay for a few more minutes, I think it's good. Please ask any questions.
And
Please do ask
I,
Burbu, because your questions might be interesting to your other
yes,
fellow companies.
and I would suggest I will write my email in the chat session part, and anyone who wants to ask something can email me. And if you wish, I can also add my phone too.
Yeah, would be great. Thanks.
That's really amazing. Thank you, Özgür. Thank you.
No problem.
May I suggest having a WhatsApp group earlier that was effective while we were in the discovery trip? Maybe having a WhatsApp group and having all of us included can be helpful.
Of course, yeah. So Daria can definitely set that up.
Mhm.
Very good.
Guys, I
Okay,
have
so
to
on
leave. I have
behalf,
Daria, I
thank
think
you
you
very much.
like the idea, right? Being
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Thank you,
having
Ted.
you
So on,
arrived earlier.
on behalf of myself, thank you so much to everyone, especially Cindy and the team, but also today Özgür and Ayhan for joining. If you have any questions for me specifically about the UK context, please send them through Cindy or through Daria, and I will be happy to answer. But for now, thank you so much, and have a good day, everyone.
Thank
Have
you,
a good
Ted.
day, Ted, and thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye bye.